Good evening, boxing fans, and welcome to Into the Ring for a Sunday, November the 7th, 2021. 1 day removed from boxing's pound for pound number one fighter in the world, becoming undisputed. I'm your host, Mighty Mike.
I'm AJ Rage.
And I'm Eric the Red.
I'm speaking in a robotic tone today. What's going on, guys?
I'm still
Another day.
reeling over that victory. I got to hang out with you yesterday and the guys over there. It was fun, Great fight, man.
Yeah.
Well, how was that party, by the way, guys?
It wasn't really a party. It was just kind of like a get together.
Yeah, just get together. But Robert, his wife, puts everything out there, man. As the evening got later, more and more food kept coming out. Lasagna, salad, fruit, cookies, all kinds of stuff.
I gotta say, man, the Alcazars, Robert and his wife, two just really genuine, very accommodating people. I mean, his wife is such a sweetheart, man. I mean, she just really, really goes out of her way to really make.
She's old school, man. Old school. I mean, doesn't let you get up. No. They bring you a plate, and his little daughter Sophie.
For people that don't know what we're talking about, we were at Robert Alcazar, Oscar De La Hoya, and many other fighters, former trainer, and sitting in that rec room, that big den, watching the fight with Robert and the young contender Maximus Castro, his dad, who's a trainer. Nate Moreno, another one, contender on the rise.
Well, there's nothing like a lot of people get together with their buddies and watch fights, but when you get to sit with a Hall of Fame trainer, an up and coming boxing trainer, and two professionals, it's a little bit different.
It was a house full of people that had nothing but boxing knowledge.
But yeah, it's not just a bunch of guys. And nothing wrong with that, but I see a lot of armchair quarterbacks guys talking about, well, I thought this, I thought that. Like even people that I know and respect, I see their opinions on the fight, and I just don't think that they just see it from a different set of eyes. It's like us seeing somebody perform on stage or whatever, or from the side stage, whatever. We kind of know what's involved, everything around it that most people just don't see. So it's just different. It's more of an educated viewing.
Yeah. And it's like almost like an Encyclopedia Britannica, because you're sitting there and as I'm looking at the walls, I mean, I remember all of these moments and stuff, and it's just like, it's crazy,
Yeah. How you doing, Eric? Business is picking up, huh?
Yeah, starting to. Yeah, we had 11 rooms yesterday closed. Let
me ask you a question. So before the pandemic, your busy time was usually around the holidays, right? Because people were doing company parties and all that. I remember a couple of years ago.
Yeah, company parties are great.
And that was what, at the end of 2019, right?
Oh yeah, 2019. Team building. That's where we got the majority of our momentum. Was in the winter of 2019, and then of course the COVID thing happened. They shut everybody down and lost all our momentum, but hopefully we're going to get it all back. So I mean, we'll see.
Just keep the faith, brother. Keep the faith.
Absolutely.
I know you do.
Absolutely.
So as you know, I mean, it would be great to have you there, but we'll see you in a couple of weeks. A week from this Wednesday. But me and AJ, like I said, we got to watch the fight over at Robert Alcazar's house. We're talking obviously about the Canelo, Alvarez, Caleb Plant. It's funny. People just completely forgot Canelo's first name. I mean, that's his fighting name, but I mean, I guess it is what it is, Saul Alvarez wins the 168-pound undisputed title. I heard a little interesting tidbit today.
What's that? From
my buddy, and it makes complete sense. Is Canelo really the first 168-pound undisputed in the four belt division? Because if you think about a little over a decade ago, there was another fighter named Joe Calzaghe who had all four belts.
No, but there wasn't four belts at the time.
He had four belts. He had all four. And he dumped the WBO because they were trying to make a mandatory for him to fight that Stieglitz guy in Germany. So he literally won that belt, dumped it, and then won a belt. So he technically won all four belts, but did he hold them simultaneously? No, a technicality. So
that's a good point, though. That's a good point.
Yeah. And I can't take credit for that. I watched Calzaghe. Me and you did watch his whole career. I can't take credit for that. My buddy Mike Montero talked about that today on his recap podcast. But I was like, you know what? That's right. Calzaghe. I mean, I don't know. AJ, you'll probably know better than me. We can go on BoxRec and see who Calzaghe ended up beating for all four of those titles. But either way, I'm kind of getting sidetracked, but I thought that was interesting. The undercard was kind of forgettable. Most people were talking that the undercard was going to be pretty unforgettable. Mm-hmm. It for the most part, it wasn't a very good undercard. I mean, that punch that Anthony Durrell landed to end the fight was a pretty highlight reel type knockout. I mean, that just
against a tough guy too.
Perfectly placed uppercut. Bam, Eric. I don't know if you. I mean, in fast motion, you heard it. It was like pa. And
I didn't. So as busy as we were yesterday, I was lucky to see portions of the Canelo fight. I literally had no time yesterday. So
yeah.
The work comes first. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So
I wish I would have.
So either way, the fight was held at the MGM Grand. It looked like a sellout crowd. It was a pretty exciting atmosphere with the lead singer of Mana walking Canelo out. You know, as kind of a opposed to, you know, a lot of guys walk out with rappers or whatever. But Federer actually was singing. I think it wasn't like a karaoke. He was actually singing as opposed to singing over something. It's pretty good. I love that band. It's a great band. And
I mean, it was funny because Maximus's dad, the trainer, Hector made a comment. He's all man. He's all Canelo's he's a superstar, man. And I said, yeah, when you got Mana.
Yeah,
coming out, you know, I mean, people don't realize the magnitude of this. Like, being a musician, I mean, it's huge.
Yeah. So either way, let's talk about the fight a little bit. Let's see, when this fight started, and as we got closer, like a week or so ago, I felt Canelo would win by a late stoppage, but then this week something in me kind of switched, and I just got, I don't know if it was a premonition or something. I had a feeling Caleb was going to pull it out, and about halfway through the fight, I thought to myself, this might come true. And I put money on the fight. I don't know if you guys know this, but I Venmo'd Neil $60, and I put 30 to win twice in two different scenarios. And like I said, up until that, you know, when he started to fade a little bit in the 10th round, I thought to myself, man, he might pull this off. He might pull it off. But obviously, I mean, you know, Canelo did what he did. He landed that big left hook, followed by the right uppercut in the 11th. Caleb had done a great job up until that moment, blocking that punch with the shoulder roll and throwing and keeping that glove high. He got fatigued after the 10th round. You can see he was starting to get a little fatigued, which is kind of been his MO. And that he just didn't get that glove up fast enough. And Canelo caught him clean on the temple, right? It was on the temple. It wasn't on the chin. It was on the temple. Yeah. And he went down. And the minute he went down, Canelo threw a right uppercut. One thing, and I think a lot of people make too much about experience. I mean, experience is important, but in this fight, you could see Caleb's lack of experience in long, grueling fights. He's only got 20 fights, AJ? 21 fights, 19.
21. He's got 21 fights
and 12 knockouts. So he doesn't have a lot of fights. And at no point did he think in that 11th round when I'm hurt, hey, take a knee, get your head right. He got up, you know, stumbled across the ring. I mean, I've seen fighters a lot more hurt than that. Yeah. But he was, you know, stumbling across the ring. And then instead of either maybe holding in that last scenario or taking a knee or just doing whatever. I mean, Canelo was coming at him and ended up landing that right hand. Once again, he bent over at the waist, and Canelo right in the line of fire. Canelo landed that right that caught him right on the jaw, and that put him down. And at that point, he might have struggled to get up and he might have beat the count, but there was no sense for it to go on.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree.
No, I agree too. I told myself after the fight that I owed Caleb Plant an apology because he's a much tougher and a much more skilled fighter than I anticipated. But I think the thing that I knew was eventually going to catch up to Caleb Plant is the fact that Canelo, the one rare thing about Canelo is he's patient in the sense he doesn't abandon something just because it's not working for some rounds. Canelo continued to work the body, continued to throw the same combinations. He continued to work the same pattern over and over because he knew eventually Caleb was going to make that mistake like Billy Joe and so many others did. And it was ironic because the punch that Canelo landed after he landed the left hook and then the right uppercut was identical to what pretty much ended Billy Joe in the fight previously. So, you know, it's just that patience thing. Although
to his credit, Billy Joe stayed up.
Yeah.
To his credit, he stayed up. I mean, obviously he went back to the corner and that was it, but he did stay up and lasted 2.5 more rounds. What was that? The 8th round when Saunders got stopped?
No.
8th or 9th round.
Yeah. After he got hit, the next round, it was done.
Yeah. Well, he went to the corner and then they stopped it and they stopped it in the corner.
Yeah.
That body work though that Canelo did, he started.
Well, that's what I was gonna say was that it wasn't just the Reynoso's work with Canelo, and I know they did this with Callum Smith and stuff. It wasn't just the fact that Caleb was being successful with the shoulder roll. the body shots that weren't connected to the body were still hitting the arms, the elbows, the sides. Canelo was getting around. It was eventually going to catch up. And you saw it when Caleb's legs started, when his stance got wider and wider. He didn't have that pop. He wasn't using his jab as much because his body was tightening up and it was hurting. So it was slowing him down. It was doing what he needed to do. He started to get a little bit of a second win, probably around, I would say around the 8th or 9th round. I thought that he had a good 9th round.
Yeah.
And then, but once again, it was the fact that Canelo had now cut that distance and he was able to land those punches, even though he was still missing. For the 3 he would miss, he was landing 1, and that 1 was starting to take effect.
Yeah, Canelo never panicked. He's like Zenyatta used to run. You're like, okay, you're at the top of the lane. Okay, you're at the 8th pole. Are you going to start going? Oh, there you go. And that's kind of what it reminded me of. I mean, you know, obviously boxing is not horse racing, but always that last minute. And I think Canelo's relying on that a lot now. There may come a time though when he relies on getting a late stoppage, and it may not happen. So I'd like to see him step on the gas a little bit sooner, especially if he does eventually fight guys like Benavidez or any.
I think that's honestly, bro. But I was thinking about that. I think that's why Canelo kind of does this, because if you really think about it, let's say Canelo's fighting against a guy like Benavidez, a big, strong guy, physically, naturally bigger than Canelo. If Canelo went out there in the early rounds and really put everything out there to try to stop Benavidez and was unsuccessful, he's not going to have a whole lot in the tank, and that gives Benavidez an opportunity. But if he takes it to the deep waters, wears Benavidez's body down, takes away that power, makes him more vulnerable, it gives Canelo the opportunities that he needs. I think that's why he's changed his tactic and doesn't attack so far much early. For the early rounds, it's more or less just break the guy down a little bit systematically and then go
learn,
kill. Yeah.
And learn and study and see.
Which in some ways is a good tactic, you know. I mean, if you have, he's got good power, but he doesn't have Munguia power. So he doesn't have that power. He's not a physically big guy who can go out there and push a guy around and just end him. So I think he just kind of takes his time and wears this guy out, you know, little bit by little bit.
What I also like, what I also like of what I saw anyway, was the relentless pressure. It was always in his face, moving forward. And then in those last couple of rounds, I mean, he was literally cutting him off in the corners and making him stay. So that kind of pressure on you all the time, constantly, that wears you down too.
Yeah, well, the minute Caleb Plant relinquished the middle of the ring and started backing up, that spelled the end. Because if you look for the first 6 rounds, he never really threw, like, I mean, even Renee kept saying he didn't throw. He threw like little stinging, little like nagging little right hands, like little check right hands, but never really threw like a nice 1-2. And not that he has power, but he's physically a good sized kid. You would think he would step into something, but the way he fought was basically one-handed. I mean, he jabbed and moved and shoulder rolled and jabbed, and he threw an occasional right hand stab to the body, and it was working for the first half of the fight. And he was looking really, really good. I don't know what the official scorecards were really, really watching. And I don't know what Steve Farhood from Showtime was watching, because he gave Caleb 1 round and proceeded to give Canelo the next like 6.
That was
and I'm
insane.
like, there's no way. You had BT Sport, right, who was there covering the fight, right? And their objective, because there's not a Brit fighter. So they have no vested interest in either way. They don't have a guy, a Brit, waiting to fight Canelo. They had Caleb up 2 rounds at the time of the stoppage, at the time of the TKO.
That's ridiculous.
What I'm saying is how can they have it 2 rounds and Farhood have like Caleb only winning 2 rounds?
Yeah,
it's just. But I get it.
That's Showtime, and that's
well,
the way they are.
Showtime thinks that they're going to curry favor with Canelo, with Team Reynoso and Canelo, by praising him, by giving him. Al Bernstein, I don't know how much you heard of it, but if you go back and watch the replay or listen to the announcing, he was atrocious.
Oh, he's
atrocious. But Canelo is his own guy. He has no allegiance to Showtime, Steven Espinosa, Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, none of them. He's got allegiance to one guy only, Canelo Alvarez. So these guys, like I said, it's almost like they're trying to, it's like you go to an event like a trade show and they just want to give you all this stuff because they think you're just going to buy from them solely. What you don't know is that they have 2 or 3 other vendors that they're buying from as well. Yeah, you can give me all the free shit you want, but I'm still going to go buy from this guy and that guy and that guy. Diversify.
You remember what I said before the fight, prior to the fight? I said I thought Caleb Plant's best chance for getting victory in this fight wasn't just outboxing Canelo. He had to make a statement. He had to make Canelo respect him. And he really didn't do that. When a guy's going to continue to walk forward, I think the reason why Caleb wasn't using his right hand, I think he was afraid of getting caught because Canelo was a very good counter puncher and he throws it pretty quick in the inside. But I think what Caleb, the fact that he wasn't able to stand his ground in the middle of the ring is because he doesn't have that punch. So he wasn't able to make Canelo sit there and wait. Canelo was just walking through his punches that he was throwing at him and stuff and saying, hey, this guy doesn't have a whole lot behind him.
Yeah.
And then, eventually, I mean, you can move, but eventually you're going to get caught up. I mean, 12 rounds is a long time to try to run away from a bull when you're a matador. And eventually the bull, ended up goring him, I mean, that's what happens. I mean, you could call it lack of experience. I call it systematically just breaking the guy down. And that was it. He didn't have much left. I didn't think after that 10th round, I saw something where Caleb was taking really big punch. I said, you know what? I don't know, man, but I'm glad they stopped the fight. I didn't want to see Caleb get hurt. I didn't want to see him get up.
Yeah.
Russell Moore was quick to stop it. But like I said, I'm going to take my hat off again. I think Caleb Plant fought an amazing fight. I thought he's fought the best against Canelo. He had the right plan. He obviously watched a lot of Mayweather versus Canelo because, his time in the Mayweather camp with, he perfected the shoulder roll. He's a lot slicker fighter than I thought he is. He had a lot more arsenal. If he could just work on that power and work on, a more
sitting down on his punches. Yeah.
I think then again, and Robert made a comment on this too. At what point is Caleb Plant going to look at his trainer, Gardner, and say, maybe I'm not with the right guy? It doesn't matter how long. I know a lot of people feel that, well, I've been with this guy forever, so I got to have this loyalty to. Let me tell you something right now. Fighters evolve. And when a fighter evolves, a trainer has to evolve. And when a trainer stops teaching you the necessary things you need to step and beat the Canelos and stuff, it's time to look for a new trainer. And I think maybe not get rid of Gardner, but maybe bring in somebody else a little bit more experienced to come in and kind of help perfect a few more tools for Caleb, because Gardner just doesn't. His whole thing was he was being very cautious. You can see with what he was saying in the ring. Everything was caution. He knew Canelo was going to come at him. Anybody who has any kind of sense as a trainer knows that the only way that you're going to be able to stop a guy who has the offense that Canelo is to pop him with a good shot, stun him a bit, and make him think second about those quick, relentless rushes and stuff.
And make him fight on his back foot.
Caleb didn't do that.
Make him fight backwards because Canelo's not a backwards fighter. You know what I mean?
Or just, even if you don't got to punch, just be physically stronger. You're a bigger guy. Push Canelo around. Make it ugly, But my thing was, I thought Caleb would have served himself better justice if he would have fought in spurts. Quick combinations like he did a few times, get out of there. Make Canelo come at him, take him back to the ropes, spin off, a few more quick ones, move it. If he would have, who knows? But that's a long ways to go, 12 rounds doing that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, his tank, he ran out of gas. He just couldn't keep up the mental pressure got to him. He couldn't stay sharp for the full 12 rounds. He did have a little bit of a bounce back, like you said. I think it was around round 9. And I think he might have won that round. And then the 10th round, he slowed down again. It's like all the reserves he had.
Well, he was doing good at the beginning of the 10th until he got caught in the middle of the round, remember? And then he kind of went back to the ropes.
Well, no. And when the 10th round started, he immediately went to the ropes.
Yeah.
The 9th round is where he did well. But like I said, it might have taken whatever reserves he had left. He just expended them all. Right when the 10th round, when the 11th round started, he just went right to the ropes. I was like shocked. I'm like, what is he doing? You got to get off those ropes. You got to command the center of the ring. But it wasn't meant to be. But like you said, I think he earned a lot of people's respect. Anybody out there that's throwing shade at Plant or whatever, it's really unwarranted because he made Canelo at times look sloppy and ordinary. Canelo was missing really, really bad the first half of the fight. Punches where like he would throw them and Plant wasn't anywhere near. He was over here and Canelo's throwing here. And I think I said to you, AJ, I said, he's trying too hard to land this one big punch, like Mike Tyson used to do. Like Mike Tyson against Evander Holyfield tried the same thing. And Evander Holyfield just chopped him up.
But I'm telling you, bro, if you go back and you watch it, I watched the whole fight again today. And watching Canelo throws those punches, I'm not saying that he's missing them intentionally, but what it is, it's kind of almost like a tactic where if you know every time the guy's going to come at you and he's going to throw a punch, he's going to throw a straight right hand this way, Caleb already knew. So after a while, it got really easy for him to avoid some of those.
Yeah.
But then Canelo starts thinking, I'm going to throw this and I'm going to come back with this. So he starts planning other little things that he starts doing. And you see.
Yeah, it's like setting traps, right?
Exactly. That's what he does. He sets traps. Absolutely.
Ring IQ, you know what I mean?
He's got a very high ring IQ. People don't, even when he looks mediocre, I hate to say it, because there was one thing Canelo did that really got under my skin. And I almost flipped on the fight and was going to be like, dude, Caleb, do something now, And that was Caleb caught him with a nice jab that just popped his head back. And Canelo kind of rolled his shoulders, kind of like, how dare you do that? And that really got under my skin because I was like, oh, dude, you're not that person. You're great, Canelo, but don't go down that road. Don't turn into another Mayweather. Like, how dare you, dude? Because that's when, you know.
I don't think Caleb possesses the power to.
No, he doesn't. But there's other fighters that might possess that power later on.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that could have been why he was like.
So why don't we talk about, Mike, what you really talk about?
Hold on. Let Eric finish his thought real quick. Eric, go ahead. Finish.
That's why I was thinking, you know, maybe that's why he was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. You know, pop my head back. That's fine.
I don't know. Just kind of rub me wrong.
20
yeah, he didn't really feel anything. I mean, Caleb hit him with some nice jabs and hit him with a couple, you know, like I said, nothing, no, he never really committed to a good right hand, but just a couple of little stinging, like, I don't know what you want to call them, just like little, just like stinging, like a gnat, boom, 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 little right hands. And that's not the right style to beat Canelo. You have to earn his respect. And maybe he just never possessed the power to really do that. He had the boxing ability, but he just didn't have the stamina or power. So he had one of the three in that equation, and he can develop the stamina. He could run more, train more, spar more, whatever it is you need to do to build that stamina up, right? Yep. But something with the power. I mean, the power is God-given. There's certain things he could do, but he's never going to be just this, you know, destructive guy. You know what I mean? He's just not.
I also think that the desire. Okay, so yeah, Plant wanted to, you know, to have the unification. But when you look at what Canelo has done in the fights that he's done over this last year, I mean, his momentum, and this was his goal. This is his end goal. And he had more inside that I think than Caleb did. You know what I mean? I really do. I think he had more of an internal fortitude to just get out there rather than Plant. So, you know, when two bulls are fighting, even if one bull isn't necessarily completely out of it and the other one is still coming, this one's going to turn and run.
It's just like nature.
It's like two bull elks, you know what I mean? When one finally realizes that, hey, this guy's not going to stop, he turns and runs. And not saying that Plant turned and ran, but he kind of gave up on himself, you know, and that's why he was getting caught. So
let's take the last 5 minutes of this first segment, and before we start talking about this weekend's fights, let's talk about where does Canelo go from here? I know he said today, he was quoted saying he needs to rest. It's time for him to rest. He's gonna obviously get through the holidays, get through the new year. He wants to come back and fight in May of 2022. Where does he go? Who does he fight? You're now undisputed. Now, I'm not saying you don't have motivation to continue to fight, because I mean, obviously Canelo's very, very well paid. He's probably one of the highest paid fighters right now in the sport. But
rumor has it he made $40 million for this fight, and I believe Caleb got $10 million, which is a great payday for Caleb Plant.
Yeah.
So where does Canelo go? So what does he do? If you're Canelo, you're Reynoso, what do you do? I mean, you're not going to waste your time fighting a 160 pounder to come up, because at this point, if you fight a 160 pounder that comes up, to me, it looks bad on you. It's like you just unified 168, and you're going to pull up a 160 guy like Andre or anybody else that, you know what I mean? Even Charlo doesn't fight at 168. I think Charlo.
I would love to see Andre get knocked out.
No. Andre's getting ready to fight that Australian kid. Don't get me wrong, I would too. But Andre, to me, to earn that shot, would have to go fight a top 10 guy at 168, win that fight, then get a crack at Canelo.
Yeah.
Because at this point, he's got 4 belts, right? One or two things is going to happen. They're all going to work with Canelo because they understand that the prestige of him holding the 4 belts and being the first ever Mexican to ever do that. But at the same time, if he doesn't fight a worthy opponent that all 4 organizations will agree with, they'll strip those titles like that.
But who's there really, when you look at 168 pounds, who's there really worthy enough to really step in and fight Canelo right now? You got Jesse Hart, who's probably one of the highest contender ones. I don't see him going very long. You got John Ryder, who would be an easy pickings for Canelo.
Well, that was the purpose of my question. Who does Canelo fight? What does he do? Does he just fight Benavidez now? Benavidez has a fight coming up, in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah,
Late substitute. Does he just, hey, okay, you know what, Canelo? You've got a taste of Showtime again. Steven Espinosa. We put together a great card. You're very, very well paid. Here's the next guy.
I think Benavidez is too much risk and not enough reward. He doesn't hold a belt. So Canelo's about collecting belts. So I think the next thing they're going to look at is possibly a money fight. Now, if that Triple G fight, which everybody's been wanting, that trilogy does happen, Canelo's made it already perfectly clear. Triple G's coming up to 168. He's not venturing back down. You know, I'm a bigger guy now. Yeah. I'm not going to do it. I'm the A side. You're the B side. If you want this fight, come over here.
He said that. Yeah, he's quoted multiple times. Said, I'm not going back to 160. This is my weight division now.
He said the same thing to Andrade. He said the same thing to Charlo. He said the same thing to so many others, and they all say no. They all want to fight them.
Charlo says, "Oh, I want to fight Canelo. I want to fight Canelo," but yet he remains at 160. If he really wants to, this is the reason why I brought this up. These guys have to come up. The bigger names, I hate to say it, are at 160. Other than Benavidez, there's no other real big name at 168. I mean, there's good fighters, but there's no other real big name. So what does he do? I think he's got no choice but to fight Benavidez. I'm going to be honest with you. There's nobody else out there because we're not going to settle for him coming back and fighting a John Ryder.
He might step back up to light heavyweight again, though. He might do that. He's been talking about that.
Or coming back and fighting an Anthony Durrell who just looked impressive. What if he comes back and goes, you know what? The first crack, because Durrell looks so good against this guy. Durrell's going to be my first defense of all four of my belts.
Well, I think Canelo will do something he hasn't done in a long time, and that's actually defend his title based on a mandatory. You know?
Yeah, he pretty much has never done that.
No, yeah, because he just goes out and wins things. But I mean, so I think he might let the sanctioned body pick who his opponent is. They might come back and see Daniel Jacobs, who's #1 contender. There could be a rematch there. It could end up being John Ryder. It could end up being Jesse Hart. It could end up being, like you said, it could be not Callum Smith, because he's moved up to light heavyweight where he's going to look pretty impressive. So I don't know. The money fights are at 160. The mandatory to keep the belts is at 168.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think Canelo's looking for the challenge. He knows he's not gonna be around much longer. He's not an old guy, but I think Canelo knows that. How much longer can I run this train?
But Canelo said it like a month ago in an interview. He wants to fight about another 5-6 years. That's a lot of fights. He's just fought 4 times. He fought 4 times in a 12-month span. 12-month span.
5 times this year he fought. Yeah. I mean, who at this level of boxing?
Only Jaime Munguia did that like 2-3 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody does that, and that just shows you. And they ask Canelo.
So that's what I'm saying. So when you're saying that train, is going to run out. No, I mean per him, unless he goes out there and takes a beating.
Opponents. I mean, he might get to a point where there's just nobody out there to beat.
Well, he's going to have to pull these guys up from 160, but they're going to have to go fight a fight at 168. The days of the guys walking into a division and getting a crack at a title, without ever stepping in the ring at that weight division, I think is wrong, and he'll be frowned upon if he does that. Yeah. I'm telling you, even if it's Charlo, because then if he beats Charlo, it's gonna be, well, you just fought a 160-pounder. It's good. They already got built-in excuses. I think his only option, honest to God, is to fight Benavidez.
Yeah,
that's the fight. I think that if you ask any real boxing person, any knucklehead on the street doesn't care. Oh, I just want to watch Canelo fight. Any boxing guy's gonna go, dude, who else is he gonna fight other than Benavidez? Benavidez technically had that belt twice, but lost it once on the scales and once because he popped for a drug test. Yeah. And it wasn't like a performance enhancing drug. It was cocaine. It was actually something that would hinder your boxing progress.
I'm going to tell you the one who's a dark horse, and based on his victories recently and where he's placed right now, is Jesse Hart. Jesse Hart, you got to remember, started his career at 175 pounds, moved down to 168 pounds, where he's been much more successful. I'm telling you now, he's the type of guy that he's a Caleb Plant. He's a slick boxer, big guy, but he's got a pop. So he's a different monster. You know what I'm saying? And he in all talks, I mean, Jesse Hart can be the guy, because I don't see John Ryder unless he can work out a deal with the zone where that's going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it looks like Jesse Hart is going to be fighting in April.
For people that don't know, Jesse Hart's the son of the late, Cyclone Hart. Eugene Cyclone Hart, who was a great middleweight back in the day and stuff. If it wasn't for his prison stint, he's got it in his blood. So you never know.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else you guys want to close in on in regards to the fight?
Yeah. One thing. Hey, Canelo, good job. I'm actually glad that it went that way. No lie. I'm a Canelo fan. He's a great fighter.
Well, you know what?
He's good for the sport because he loves the sport.
Perfect. That's what I'm saying.
He loves the sport. And
he really does.
Those are the kind of fighters we need. We need guys that will go out and fight the tough fights. and continue to strive and push it forward. I heard him in the post-fight interview, and he basically was saying that he loves it as much now as he did 16 years ago.
That's perfectly said, bro.
That's exactly why I like a fighter like that. So
good
job, Canelo.
My closing on it is, whether you like Canelo or you dislike Canelo, what Canelo's doing is good for the sport of boxing. Like what you just said. I said it that night too when I was over at Roberts. It's good for boxing to have these kind of things that happen, because it brings the attention that we need to kind of shine down and throw cast shadow on some other sports. But at this point, like I said, I mean, we need more of this. We need to get away from the days of some of these fighters like Crawford and others that fight when they want to fight, and they fight lesser opponents and they do more time trying to build up an opponent to be something they're really not, instead of going out and taking risks. I like boxers that take risks,
Yep. All right, let's talk about this weekend's fights coming up. We have some local fights coming up here at the Pond, or whatever they call it now, the Honda Center in Anaheim. Main event on DAZN, Jaime Munguia's 160-pound showdown against Gabe Rosado, who's coming off that big win over Bektamir. I mean, here's the thing. I think, AJ, you and I both said it, man. It's like one of those things where it's like, I mean, I know who I'm going to root for, but I wish I didn't have to root against Gabe Rosado, because I love Gabe Rosado.
Yeah.
He's been a warrior his whole career. He had there was a time when people said, hey, it's time for you to step away. He took some beatings, and not to the sense where he was knocked out, but his face, he gets carved up, or at least he used to get carved up. He's doing much better now with defense, but he's a fighter that I like, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to root against him very, very vehemently on Saturday, because I'm a Jaime Munguia fan. And, I've only been able to see one other fight that's been confirmed for that. Alexis Rocha, undefeated fighter, is fighting on them, but that's all I see on BoxRec. There's nothing else. I'm sure, hopefully this week, within the next day or two, they'll start to kind of, they'll start to kind of put that out there.
Well, it's a homecoming for, I mean, it's not, in some terms you want to say it's not, but in Munguia identifies more as a West Coast person than an East Coast person, which Gabe Rosado is. So this is an East Coast versus West Coast showdown in a sense.
Yeah.
Munguia is definitely going to be the hometown favorite. Like Canelo, Munguia is probably one of the boxers today that, where you have fighters out there like Shakur and others, and Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez, who claim they have a fan base. They really don't. Munguia has a fan base. Believe me, this is a fight you don't have to sell. It will be a packed house. It will be an exciting fight as long as it lasts. And when I say as long as it lasts, because I don't want to see Gabe Rosado get hurt. Of course, I want to see Munguia do what he does. But Munguia does one thing really well. You could talk about his defense and the holes in it. You could talk about his output and maybe sometimes his choices of punches. But the one thing you cannot doubt when it comes to Munguia is his accuracy and how he places his punches when it comes to the body. And Rosado has shown time and time again, especially in his last 3 fights, how vulnerable he is to the body. Beck the Bully hurt him to the body. In this world, no one's going to convince me that Beck the Bully is a harder puncher than Jaime Munguia. So I think that's going to be the major obstacle for Rosado to get over in order to be successful against a guy of Munguia's caliber.
Yeah, the power of Munguia is just going to overshine anything else.
Be too much for Rosado, you think?
Yeah.
Well, he's coming into his own. Like I say, he's starting to get into his man strength. People forget how young Jaime Munguia is. When they talk about guys like Charlo and Demetrius Andre and all these guys are all in their 30s. Jaime's not even halfway to 30 yet. So he's a young guy. He's in that same category with guys like Devin Haney and all these other guys. He's just beat a lot better fighters.
Yeah, he just recently turned 24, like just a couple of weeks ago. So he's still very young.
Yeah,
still very young. I'm going to say something like, Jaime's powerful, all right? Jaime's very strong. He doesn't really have that one-punch knockout power. I mean, he's scored some one-punch knockouts, but I think it's safe to say I've seen him fight up close and spar countless rounds. Jaime hits hard, and he is getting stronger. He doesn't really have that one-punch knockout power, and maybe as he grows and gets more and more strength, he will, but I don't see him landing a punch on Rosado and taking Rosado out. I see it more along the lines where he might drop Rosado, hurt Rosado, and I think he just starts to carve him up. That's what I think. Somewhere probably, I don't think his fight's going to go into the later rounds. I don't, because I think at one point, I think Rosado's going to stop and trade. He's going to box for the first couple rounds, and much like how Caleb Plant just fought Canelo, Jaime's just going to keep coming, and then eventually, in true Rosado fashion, he's a tough guy, man, and he's proud. He's going to stand his ground and trade. He really is.
And
it'll make for an interesting fight.
And Jaime takes a great punch, and the thing is Rosado's got a little bit of pop. But let's be honest, Beck the Bully, we don't know really what kind of chin he had.
He only had like 8-9 fights.
Yeah,
so
he wasn't a fighter that was designed by boxing. He was designed more in kickboxing, martial arts. I mean, he made the same mistake that Manny Pacquiao did. He used his own power to move forward, and that assisted Rosado in this knockout. Rosado, everybody saw it. I was even talking to myself, telling him, dude, when is Rosado going to just throw a punch when this guy's coming in? The guy's coming in just reckless with his head wide open. And finally, Rosado did what he did, and that's it. Jaime doesn't do those kind of things.
That reminds me of another fight. The Zepeda.
No, but Zepeda's a little bit different. I mean, because Zepeda.
That kid was pulling his punches. He was afraid to. You talk about a guy that was like deathly afraid in there. That kid was afraid in there. Once that bell rang, it all was real, and he probably looked into Chone's eyes and saw this guy's not here to fuck around, and
and he wasn't.
No,
a minute 45 seconds later. I know I wasn't here the last time you guys did this, so Chone Zepeda, good job.
Chad,
I enjoyed every second of it. I had to say second because it wasn't very long.
So obviously, like I said, we got the Rosado Munguia fight, which is going to be a big one. I'm sure you're still going to have your name serves out there. They're going to say, "Oh, Munguia's still not fighting nobody." I'm thinking to myself, okay. I made a comment the other night, yesterday when we were over there. I see a pattern. I see these champions fighting Jaime's victims. We just had Charlo, who just defended his title in a tough fight against, Montiel, a guy who didn't get past 2 rounds, actually suffered his first loss by a devastating knockout by the hands of Munguia. Now you got Jason Quigley, who's going to be fighting against Demetrius Andre, a guy and Jason Quigley, whose claim to fame is I beat Shane Mosley Jr., not senior, junior, in a highly controversial fight, whose only loss was a devastating knockout at the hands of Toriano Johnson, another guy who, when Munguia beat him, knocked half his lip 12 rows back into the stadium. So at some point, these guys got, they really don't have the argument to say, well, Munguia don't want to fight me. Why would Munguia not want to fight you if you're struggling with the guys that he walks through? And that's when he was at a much younger age and much less experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Jaime doesn't fear anybody, guys.
No.
Like I said it many, many times 4 years ago when he came over here to California, he was brought in to fight Triple G. And he was ready to get into the ring and give it his all. Win, lose, or draw. If he got knocked out, whatever stopped, he was there to fight. So nobody could, and this is when Triple G was the killer. This is not the Triple G of 2021. This is Triple G of like 2018, 2019. Yeah. So either way, that's just people talking. There's always going to be haters. You've got a different faction. You got the Canelo guys that probably really dislike Munguia and vice versa. The Munguia guys are less vocal and less annoying, I think, than really. He doesn't have an annoying fan base.
Now, you talked about just earlier, Mike, about where does Canelo go from here? With Munguia, obviously, if he goes out there and if he wins this fight, which he should, in devastating fashion, dominating fashion against Rosado, a guy who's being looked upon as, he's not a trail horse. He's a guy who's kind of put himself based on some victories in his close decision loss, which many people, including myself and you, Mike, thought he beat Danny Jacobs in that fight. He might end up looking at that big money fight, and being the fact that Munguia is kind of the Mexican fighter on the way up, growing a fan base. Canelo's the legend, Cinco de Mayo, that could be huge.
Here's the thing.
Isn't it Juarez and Tijuana? They don't kind of like each other anyway. The two cities.
No, well,
yeah, Guadalajara.
I thought Guadalajara is how it's. Yeah, it's not a fighting. It's just they're more uppity. They're more cosmopolitan. A lot of European influence, whatever. Whereas TJ is kind of looked upon as like,
chiclets.
But I would like to see if Jaime gets through this fight. Right, this is November. I'd like to see Jaime fight again, or if he gets through this fight unscathed, no injuries, no cuts, he gets into a fight early in 2022, January. Maybe early February at the latest. And then, but I want to see that next fight to be at 168. I don't want to see him at 160, jump to 168 and fight Canelo Alvarez. I really want to see, these fighters now fight at least one good opponent in that division. And who at 168 could he fight? I mean, it could be one of these guys, one of these John Ryders, Jesse Harts, one of these guys that are at 168. Absolutely. I mean, Jaime's not afraid. They can make a deal, right?
No.
Make the fight happen.
And that's a misconception that's happened in boxing. That's why I really, really love this Porter Crawford fight, because there's one thing about Showtime Sean Porter. He doesn't pull any punches. He says it the way it really is. Sean's a guy who's been invited to every gym. He's worked with so many different, co-trainers and sparred against everybody. He's known, and he says it this way. Anybody who's trying to tell you that nobody wants to fight me is full of shit. He said it too about Crawford. He's all, he's got this persona, but he wasn't calling anybody out. And when he did call them out, there was no return phone calls. He's all, because I've been chasing him for 2 years. So,
well, they made that
that's
bullshit
all bullshit.
$1 million offer to him, Bob Arum and Top Rank, and they just laughed at him, dude.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even get up out of bed and go run for $1 million. I mean, Sean Porter makes good money.
Errol Spence didn't even want to, he's not a talker either, but his own people came back and said, hey, when you try to put some ridiculous 70-30 percentage and you're going to be the A side, you ain't beat nobody. Come on. They put themselves in a situation where there's an exit door. And that's exactly what they do. That's going to be the problem with Munguia. Going up there at 168 pounds, how many guys are going to look for that exit door rather than sign on the dotted line and think that, hey, I could be the first one to stop this train coming into 168? Because that's here right now. Jaime's going to move into that 168 pretty smooth. He's a big guy. He's still growing and stuff. He's probably struggling to make 160 right now.
Yeah. I saw him the other day. He checked and he was still about six pounds off. And, that was about like 2-3 days ago. So, he's about 9-10 days out. So he's right on point.
Yeah.
He's right on point to make that 160.
That 168, you don't have to kill yourself as much. You can
eat a little bit
better, put a little more protein in your body. Yeah. Can, be more stronger. And he's got the height. So who knows?
No, I would love to see Jaime eventually at once. And we all know he's going to eventually go there. Let's get him through.
What if we had 2 Mexican undisputeds in a row? Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
Oh, it'll take years or whatever, but you know what? If Canelo moves up and all those belts are vacant, and then Munguia finally gets some shots.
Well, or Munguia just fights Canelo, beats Canelo, and all of a sudden he's undisputed.
Because I'll tell you right now, honestly, based on what I saw, and I'm not saying that Munguia's got the skill level as far as the slickness that Caleb Pant has, but there's one thing I will tell you this. You walk towards that man, you throw a punch at that man, and he's going to hit you back. This taunting stuff that Canelo was doing to Plant wouldn't work with Munguia. Once Munguia kind of gets 90 pounds of chest, it's a different ballgame, man. It's a different ballgame.
But you know what? I personally would like to see him start eliminating guys. You know what I mean? Kind of like Canelo did. You know what I mean?
If he gets that opportunity.
But no, I'm just saying, if he got that opportunity, that would be amazing. To have 2.
Yeah, Jaime's very durable. Jaime's durable. And you're going to hit him, and he's going to just keep coming at you because he's got a great chin. Yeah. I mean, the only time I seen him take a really clean shot that kind of, for like a split second, kind of gave him a little shake was when
Spike
O'Sullivan caught him with like a picture perfect just put every ounce of weight he had.
Jaime didn't even take a step back.
No, he didn't take a step back.
That's a hell of a chin, bro.
Yeah,
Spike O'Sullivan's a puncher.
I used to watch Jaime spar guys that were like 185, 190 guys, big guys.
Like, you said about those sparring sessions with Molina. Remember that other guy, Molina, the guy that came in.
Well, Carlos Molina was a little smaller than him, but he was more of a slick boxer. But I saw Jaime spar big guys. I'm talking guys like 6'1", 6'1", but like 190. I'm talking big dudes, big brothers from LA that came down to spar. These were big dudes, and they would go at it toe to toe. And these guys were big. Yeah. So either way, Canelo has not really shown an interest in fighting Munguia. About a year ago, remember he said, I really don't have an interest in fighting another Mexican fighter, blah, blah, blah. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that's stupid. Come on, dude. Look at the wars we had between Morales and Barrera. And come on, dude. That's kind of a cop-out. I'm not saying Canelo's afraid. He's not afraid. No.
But, bro, you're right. You touched on something that I was thinking about, too. I'll tell you why Canelo would rather lose his title reign to a non-Mexican, because then he's still the best Mexican. If he loses to another Mexican, it doesn't matter what that Mexican fighter's done at that point. He beat Canelo. So he's now the man. That's just the way it goes. It's no different than when Oscar beat Chavez. Chavez is looked upon as the best Mexican fighter. Oscar beats him, regardless if he was from Mexico or not. He's still a Mexican fighter. He was now the man. That's what Canelo fears.
There's a bit of an ego there. There is.
Absolutely.
There's an ego there. There's a competitiveness there. But you guys, is it a little too early to make a prediction for this weekend, or you guys, what do you think?
No,
what do you think? Who wants to go first?
Me?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be a feeling out process. Gabe Rosado in his wisdom as being a veteran, he's gonna want to feel Munguia out. There's nothing that I believe that Gabe Rosado is gonna think I could just go in there and knock Jaime Munguia. He's gonna try to feel him out. I think he's gonna try to set the same pace that happened with Daniel Jacobs, and that's going to be his downfall. That's only going to make Jaime impatient, and once he turns it on, I see Jaime catching him either to the body, the chin. I see around, a 5th, 6th, maybe 7th round stoppage. Could be on cuts, could be by just a straight knockout.
Eric, what do you think?
Okay, so since I got the last 5th round wrong, I'm going to go this Mexican fighter in the 5th round.
5th round? All right,
fifth round, baby. 5th round.
So Eric Scott Munguia by what? KO or TKO?
KO or TKO. Maybe KO. It could be a liver shot that puts him down. Who knows?
I'm gonna say KO round 7. Round 7. Munguia wins.
Yeah, and I'm
gonna go 9.
I'm gonna say Jaime gets to him between 6 and 8. Yeah. TKO or KO. He's gonna catch him. Like I said, it might be a little bit, lackluster the first couple of rounds as he's kind of trying to figure it out. And Rosado's going to try to box and move because he's become more of a boxer in his second half of his career.
He's not a hard guy to hit.
But like I said, eventually he's going to stand his ground and he's going to trade, and he might catch Jaime with something. He might catch Jaime with a big punch and maybe even shake him a little bit. But I think Jaime will fight through it and stop him somewhere between 6 and 8. That's what I. So we're all pretty much in agreement. We got Munguia winning by either KO or TKO. Eric's saying round 5, but it wouldn't surprise me. Now, what if Jaime goes out there, guys, and just obliterates Rosado in 2 rounds?
Well, that's what I was thinking too. It is a possibility, bro.
And then calls out Canelo.
Yeah.
And says, I want Canelo. I just fought a 168 pounder that was coming down, obviously, because Rosado is a big kid. He's thick. He's a thick kid.
But I saw him next to Munguia. He doesn't have Jaime's size. He's
he's about the same height as Jaime, but he's a little thicker. He's naturally a thicker guy than Jaime because he's older. Jaime's 24. When Jaime's his age, Jaime's going to be like that. Yes. But Rosado is a solid, thick guy.
He didn't look that big to me. I don't know why, because Beck the Bully's not that tall, and he didn't. Rosado looked kind of little to me with Beck the Bully. I don't know.
No, Rosado and Jaime, they're about the same height, bro. I've met Rosado. He's about the same height as Munguia. He doesn't look this tall because he's not as thin as Jaime. Jaime's more wiry. Jaime doesn't have real broad shoulders, whereas Rosado, he's broader and thicker this way, so he looks naturally shorter. He looks because he's more compact, but they're really about the same height. Really, watch, you'll see on Saturday.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's going to be, I'm excited for this fight. I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but we got that fight coming up. The following week, we're in Arizona watching our kids fight on the same night as Terrence Crawford. But Wednesday, the 17th, so a week from Wednesday, we got Tim Tszyu fighting Inoue, one of Munguia's former opponents, he won a tough 12-round fight. It was a tough fight. I was there. Great fight. So we got we got Munguia, then we got Tim Tszyu, then we got the fights on the 20th, and then the following week we got Kambosos, Teofimo. If these guys ever get in the ring, the following week we got Devin Haney versus Jojo Diaz. We really do. And then the week after that, we got Lomachenko versus Comey. So we really are, man. I just hope everybody stays COVID free. Everybody nobody misses weight or tests dirty, because we got some really good fights to finish off 2021, man.
No, yeah, we really do. I'm really
something good for 2021.
I think next to Munguia and Rosado, the fight I'm really, really anticipating. I'm really looking forward to Tim Tszyu's fight. I'm gonna really, because this is gonna sit
together, guys.
This is gonna be a really tough test. This kid from Japan.
Yeah, he's tough.
In a way, he's a tough kid. He's a different type of opponent than Tim Tszyu's ever faced. Tim Tszyu's faced some guys that put pressure, but nobody's ever going to pressure him the way he's going to get pressured.
Yeah.
And a guy that's got the physical strength to move a guy like Jaime Munguia, he definitely has the strength to move Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu's going to have to be patient. He can't allow himself to get angry. Like I've seen him get in fights where he starts to make little mistakes. He needs to stay patient. Break this guy down, take a page out of closing, break him down like Jaime did. Jaime finally sensed up, saying, I'm not going to take this guy out with one shot. He broke him down, did what he had to do. Tim Tszyu has to understand every round is crucial. It doesn't matter how much this guy comes at you. Just make sure you hit him with more punches and win the round.
It's true. It's true because he was forcing the issue a little bit in his last fight.
Yeah.
With the fight where Zarafa pulled out, and who did they bring up again? The other kid from Australia, undefeated kid. Either way, he was really, really trying for that knockout. He can't do that against Inoue.
No,
because
he's got to just be patient. When
he doesn't get it 3-4 rounds in, I mean, Tim hasn't had to go long fights with long, grueling fights, kind of like Caleb Planchard's had to do, and we don't know what his gas tank is like yet. I mean, we know that he's supremely patient, which is such an anomaly because the last fight he wasn't patient, but he is very, very patient. AJ, you've been saying that since we started watching him and talking about it. He's a patient fighter.
That's the one thing I think that Tim Tszyu possesses that a lot of fighters
patient.
Don't.
Especially for a young guy.
Yeah, and the thing is, what he doesn't want to do is let this fight get ugly. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, and I know he's gonna want to make it ugly like he did with Munguia. The only reason why Munguia took so long to get going was because Inoue didn't let him. That constant pressure, that bumping into him, and all kind of stuff, didn't allow Jaime to get set up and do the things he wanted to do.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go back to Tim Tszyu's last fight when he got a little impatient. He was kind of going for that one shot, and it kind of reminded me when his trainer, when Abel Sanchez was talking to Gennady when he fought against Cal Bricker, was telling him, stop going for the one shot. Use the jab, settle things down. Yeah. So his trainer told Tim Tszyu this. Tim Tszyu settled down. You saw a different mentality. When he came out, he started using his jab, setting things up, and then all of a sudden he landed the shot that hurt, and then the viciousness came out. That's what he has to do. To be calm, let this guy throw wild punches. Make him pay for those wild, reckless bursts of energy. Make him pay for it. Stay controlled, and he'll win this fight.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, we're excited for that one. I'm really excited for that one. I mean, I'm excited for both these fights because these are probably two of my favorite fighters fighting in the next, week and a half.
Yeah, because
two of my favorite fighters.
The 17th in the evening, we're all going to be.
Yeah.
But a win here for Tim Tszyu, I think definitely puts him in line for a possible matchup against champion Brian Castano. And I'll tell you something right now. That's going to be a very intriguing matchup. Because
very tough fight because Castano is tough, man.
It's Castano is like in a way, but just Castano has more skill level as far as his punch placement. But I think this fight is so crucial for Tim Tszyu, because if Tim Tszyu's successful in containing those bursts of energies and making the bull look like the matador, guess what? The lever kind of turns towards Tim Tszyu in this Castano fight, because he's already proven that he can fight a guy who fights with that burst of energy and throws a lot of punches. It's a great thing for him.
And the management team, Glenn Jennings for Tim Tszyu, is obviously
that's what he's doing.
Obviously, they're picking the right guys. They said, listen, we need to fight somebody that's going to emulate Castano because we're the mandatory. And this is the guy that we need to do. And this is not just some guy they're finding, they're pulling off the street. This is a legitimate world-class fighter. I mean, he's not a world champion, but he did fight for the title. And if he
hasn't been able to get a decent fight since then, because nobody wants to fight him.
Yeah. So very exciting for that fight.
Once he gave Munguia a tough time.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's great matchmaking because his management team, you got to take your hat off to him. They're doing the right thing with Tim. They're putting him in the right fights to prepare him for that ultimate fight.
Yep.
Boxing is more of a team sport than most people know. So
sometimes.
Well, you got to have the right people in your corner. You know what I mean?
And then obviously
everything's got to work. And what I liked also kind of about that Canelo fight is he gave his props to his trainers. Afterwards. And so I mean, it's just classy. And he gave props to Plant as well, which I kind of like.
Well, you have to at that point.
I know.
Because Caleb earned a lot of people's
really
respect last night.
Really
where does he go from here, Caleb? And not to regress and go back, but I was thinking about that a little bit today too. Actually, I was outside doing something. I go, man, where does Caleb go from here? Because I think the world's his oyster. This is a great payday for him. He has to either hope that Canelo goes to a different division, or if you're Caleb, do you go to 175, that extra 7 pounds, or try to drop 8 pounds?
Well, you have to ask yourself.
I think if he dropped 8 pounds, if he was able to, his power, I think, would still be there for him and he would
What
actually.
if Munguia wins this fight on Saturday and then goes after Caleb Plant as like a measuring stick?
I'm going to tell you right now, honestly.
Not that I don't think that would ever happen. I mean, I have a better chance to win the lottery, but I'm just saying.
You guys might not agree with me, but I honestly think if Caleb Plant took a little time, brings another person into his camp, it's not about trying to create power. It's just about leverage, placing your feet a certain way in order to, you can throw half power, all your power, and then just use that leverage with that person's leverage coming in to create power. A rematch with Canelo. There was only a couple mistakes there. I think those mistakes can be corrected.
Yeah,
I don't think
he wasn't knocked out. I know people are gonna say he was knocked out. No, he wasn't. This is a man who was in this fight from the first round on to the point he got knocked out. This was not, fuck those scorecards. This guy was in this fight. I'm gonna tell you right now, honestly, based on his ring IQ was much higher than I thought. I'm telling you, this kid works hard. If he could correct those things, go back and look at the mistakes he made. Is Canelo able to build an offensive plan that's more dominating than what he did now? Or is Caleb able to build just enough?
Well, Caleb has more of the upside because Canelo, like by his own admission, he says, I'm at my peak right now. When you peak, there's only one where to go.
Do you agree with me though, Mike? I would love to see it again.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it again. I think Caleb would have to come back and you know what's going to, I'll tell you the telltale sign, bro, is when by Monday, late Monday, Tuesday, they start counting up those pay-per-view receipts and they go, well, you know what? This was actually pretty damn good because maybe there was something about Caleb Plant that intrigued people. You know, a red-blooded American kid from Nashville, you know, he loses his little daughter. I don't know if you know the story about his mom, but his mom was murdered and all. I mean, he's a guy who's been through some tragedy, but I mean, you just never know. I mean, you just never know. If it makes dollars, it makes sense, right?
Okay. The thing about Caleb Plant, like Canelo's always said, he was born into toughness. Red-headed Mexican kid with freckles and stuff from day one. He had to run this. Well, guess what? Caleb Plant was a white boy in a black neighborhood. Every day was a war. I've seen videos on there when Caleb was younger and stuff like this. I mean, this guy was homeless. I mean, he had to fight to live. So the toughness is there in Caleb Plant. A lot more than a lot of these other people. I'll tell you that right now. So he made a new fan out of me. I'm telling you now, I think Caleb Plant, there's no shame. Just like Canelo losing to Floyd Mayweather, there's no shame in that one loss.
And that's what Canelo told him too.
Let's see where he builds from here.
That's exactly what he told Plant.
When he built from here, man. I'm telling you.
He said there's nothing to be ashamed of. We put a good fight on. And then they did. It was a good fight. I mean, it was exciting because it was exciting because you didn't know what was going to happen. You're like, wow, how is this guy? You know, all these so-called experts were saying, oh, Canelo's going to just, once he touches him, it's going to be over.
Nobody anticipated Caleb was going to be that well schooled. So obviously Caleb is a sponge. His work at the Mayweather gym for all those years paid off. You could see it in his boxing ability.
And you're right. You're right. What if Caleb goes and gets somebody like, who's the hot guy right now? Maybe he contacts Sugar Hill and goes, hey, you know what? I want you to start working with me because Sugar Hill supposedly knows the secret to get more power out of fighters. You know, that was the Kronk thing. Never know. I tell you what, it'll make a very, very interesting. How do I say this? It'll perk a lot of people's ears. If they're like, oh, Caleb's not ready to just take that $10 million and ride off into the sunset. You know, while he still has his faculties, he's gonna get the right guy.
That could do that. Yeah, like Robert. Robert's a guy who trains power. I mean, look at the fighters that he's worked with. They're all power hitters. Even his young guys coming up. You know, I mean, he needs to get an old school trainer that can mix. He doesn't have to dump his trainer Gardner, but he needs somebody else to teach him the other part of it. Let's just say this. At some point during the dance has to stop and the kiss has to begin. So at some point, Caleb's got to step up and show that toughness that he has. Because there was points where he landed a couple straight right. And I was like, God, that's what I'm talking about. But he wasn't stepping into a right because he's got that, retreat mentality because of Gardner. Gardner's always telling him, watch this more. Gamber. Yeah, whatever his name is. He just always telling him to be, careful of this and careful of this. Sometimes you got to caution win. I'm going to say it again. If Caleb does get the opportunity, that'd be great. But the problem is, this was probably the only time Caleb Plant was ever going to get an opportunity at an event at this magnitude, with this spotlight to do this. and that shot was lost.
Yep.
You know.
Any closing thoughts, Eric? Because we're about an hour in now.
No, you know what? I'm just looking forward to the rest of the fights for the rest of the year. I mean, hopefully we're busy here at Cinescapes, and hopefully I don't get to watch as many of the fights as I want to, but I can always watch them after the fact. But business is business. But I'm just looking forward to actually being there with you guys in about a week and a half.
Hey, real quick,
and to be able to honor our brother, and we're going to get to watch that Tim Tszyu fight together. So I mean that's something that we haven't been able to watch the fight together, the three of us, in a long time.
Hey, quick question: did ESPN Plus pick that fight up yet?
What?
The Tszyu fight.
I'm gonna look in that tonight. I was gonna say,
I don't know what time is that gonna be on.
It's gonna be at about 4:00 in the morning on Wednesday morning, which would be.
Hey, we've been pretty good about doing that, making it though. We did it every time.
Well, we gotta wake up about 3 a.m. on
Tuesday. No, Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday, the 17th.
It's Wednesday, but they're
a full day.
They're 15 hours ahead right now. So we're gonna be waking up Tuesday night, which is early Wednesday morning, about 3 a.m. So it'll be Wednesday morning.
Okay, well, after the fight, we can just get on the road and get down to Miramar.
Hey, real quick, I had a funny little exercise I want to do before we get off the air. I'll only take a second. So in football and sometimes in sports, you can have two favorite teams and say, I hate to see these two teams play each other. I'm broken heart. Real quick, don't think about it too much. Two fighters within the same division, or at least a division off, that you would hate to see fight each other. Go.
Munguia and Tim Tszyu.
God damn it, you got mine. Go, Eric.
That's easy.
I think I'm probably the same. Munguia and Tim Tszyu.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I thought I was going to get you guys on that one, but I knew that would.
Maybe. Let me see. Maybe. Yeah.
Munguia, Tim Tszyu.
The guys I know. Yeah, that'd be a hard one because I'd want to root for both guys because I like both guys a lot.
Yeah.
Don't know Tim.
You never know, Mikey. That fight might happen someday.
Well, we were big fans of Deontay Wilder. We would have hated to see Deontay Wilder versus Alexander Usyk since we like both the guys. That's another one. So.
Oh yeah, I like Usyk. I really do. Especially
great fighter, man. Hey, I'm starting to believe more and more, man. He might have a shot against Fury.
Here's a fight I'll never like to see happen, but I don't think it would be like Lomachenko versus Zepeda because they're only 5 pounds apart.
Yeah.
I would never want to see that fight, man.
I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't like to see Zepeda versus Prograis because I like Prograis so much, but Zepeda, but I have to deal with Zepeda. But two guys I really respect.
Yeah.
It's when you see two guys that you really respect in the sport fight each other. Yeah. That's what it's hard.
Hurry up and get some
call us out, bro.
Josh Taylor. That's what I want to see.
We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. All right, fellas. That was a good show, man. So we'll be back. I guess we'll be back on Tuesday to, hopefully wrap up any last minute changes in our predictions for the Munguia fight, or maybe some updates between now and then. They'll be doing they're not really doing any like grand entrances and arrivals, but they will be having some press conferences here in LA, Anaheim, which has been nice because it's close. If we can somehow find a way to get down there. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. We're supposed to have tickets, hopefully. So we'll see. So
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, which was there.
So anyways, all right, guys, that was a good show. Hope you guys have a good rest of the night. Eric, good luck at the business. Be safe, man. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share it with your friends. If you like what we're doing, if you don't like what we're doing, send us a message. Tell us something you want to talk about. Tell us we're ugly. Tell us we suck.
But we're not
ugly.
Tell us
we're not ugly and we don't suck. So
yeah, but that's all right. Yeah. If you watch us, I don't care if you like us or not. Just watch us.
Haters. No, just kidding.
So anyways, for all of us at Enter the Ring Live, I'm your host, Mighty Mike.
AJ Rage.
And